We as leaders, especially CEOs, need to embrace our imperfection, not as a license to be screwing things up, but as an act of authenticity, of recognizing our own limitations and our need for others. Indeed, the requirement of collaboration.
This is the Organizational Health Advantage podcast with Keith Hadley and James Felton, principal consultants at Table Group. They're in the business of coaching leaders to build strategic focus and cultural alignment that leads to amazing results. Welcome to the Org Health Advantage.
Hello, and welcome back to the Organizational Health Advantage podcast. I'm your host, James Felton, and I am thrilled to be joined by a couple of longtime PCs and friends of Table Group. Rick Packer, how are you, man?
James, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's good to have you, man. And then we're welcoming in Jim Brown. How are you, Jim?
Terrific, James. Great to be with you.
Yeah, you as well. Rick, you've been a PC at Table Group for how long now?
2004. So, man, this is almost 22 years now.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
and we've had you on the podcast before, so thanks again for joining us. And Jim, you were a PC at the Table Group between 2005 and 2019. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So started soon after Rick was in the fold, and I learned lots from him. He was a generous coach in my early days. And then we had lots of great adventures.
Yes, absolutely. And now you're a longtime friend of Table Groups and an author, and you've got a new book out called The Imperfect CEO.
Happy to say that that's launched on the market and been well received. We're excited that we just got told it's a USA Today bestseller. So excited about that.
Congratulations. Yes, that's awesome. And that's a follow-up to a previous bestseller, The Imperfect Board Member, which
Correct.
is really cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would love to dive in, if you don't mind, to The Imperfect CEO. And where I'd like to start is it's about organizational health, and it's
Absolutely.
a fable. And so just talk about like the why and like how is this similar to The Advantage? And where are there differences? And so what motivated you to write something like this?
Sure. Well, first, let's just say that the work that Pat has done for 30 years now in organizational health is the foundation that everything that I do is built on. And all three of us and so many of our PC friends have had the same experience where we get to spend time with leaders who actually recognize that if their organization was healthier, everything would be better. And so that's been the focus of my energy. And as both of you know, I also bring into that fold conversations with boards of directors. So it's not just the management team, it's the full organizational leadership suite. But all of it is about making organizations healthier. And that's been the focus that I've been on for really 30 years. It's only since 2005 that I was connected closely with Pat, but that continues. And the motivation really is that I can share more with the world of what I've been learning and what I'm seeing the marketplace is saying they need some more help with. So I believe this book is very much a complement to the work that The Advantage talks about, the fundamental work that the 5 dysfunctions began. It's an extension of it. It's not a replacement for it at all.
Yeah. And in fact, you even talk about 4 peaks that are evident in healthy organizations. Do you want to just list those out first?
Sure.
Tell us about those. Yeah.
So these are peaks of what we call the org health ascent model, as if we're constantly ascending to a summit of total organizational health. And they are collaborative culture, leadership accountability, strategic momentum, and talent magnetism.
Yeah. So, why don't you go through those? Like, describe what some of them are fairly self-evident in the description, but go into detail about the collaborative culture.
Sure. We call that the core. It's the centerpiece of organizational health. Um, we're not going to be able to do more as a company, as an organization that brings a whole bunch of people together unless we become remarkably effective at helping people bring their best strengths, ask their hardest questions, challenge the long believed ideas, um, build on each other's ideas, and make the best interaction happen. Uh, one of the examples that I share in the book was actually from early table group client experience where I was working with this global operation, but in their Canadian division, and they had been told that they had the highest cost of production of global operations, and if they didn't do something about that, they were going to mothball the plant, and 700 people were going to be
Mm.
put out of work. And we were able in that single year to help the leadership team come together and really work on collaboration to the point that team leaders were voluntarily giving staff from their division to help people in another division where the crisis of the week was happening. In fact, within a few months, they were giving budget from their areas to wherever it was needed most. And the exciting thing is that they managed to collaborate to such an extent that by the end of the year, they had become the lowest cost manufacturer
Hmm.
of these things, the products, compared to the rest of the operations around the world. That's the significance of collaboration. And Rick and James, I'm not telling you anything you haven't seen yourselves
Right.
over and over, but that gets me pretty excited. And the idea that
Yeah.
that kind of potential is available in virtually every organization if they really learn how to collaborate. Man, the whole world gets better if we can just do this more and more.
Jim, if I think about the work that you've done, all of our table group colleagues over the years have done, um, the collaborative culture, the team cohesion, the overall team health is perhaps the one thing that causes organizations to reach out to us initially. And then,
Mhm.
of course, we branch out into other areas of organizational health. But this point right here on collaborative culture, I mean, that is kind of the linchpin and the foundation of a lot of this work. And so if we tie that, your first peak, if you will, collaborative
Yes.
culture back to the title of the book, The Imperfect CEO, what does the CEO need to do to ensure that the culture is going to be collaborative in the way that you're talking about?
The essence of that title is that we as leaders, especially CEOs, need to embrace our imperfection, not as a license to be screwing things up, but as authenticity, an act of authenticity, of recognizing our own limitations and our need for others. Indeed, the requirement of collaboration. And if we can't do that, CEOs fall into the trap of thinking they're supposed to look like they're perfect, have all the answers, be totally confident all the time. And it just doesn't work. And that's what the CEO in the story discovers is that it's not working. It felt like it used to work, but it's not working now at all. And
Mm.
it's a journey of discovery that the more that he becomes honest with himself and honest with his leadership team and vulnerable about his weaknesses, then the more that the strengths of the others around the table can come to full force and everybody wins if we do that properly. It's so exciting when it does start to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, one of the things that was a theme I felt throughout the entire part of the fable with David as the main character something you just said a moment ago, Jim, whether it's collaborative culture or the other areas, was just what worked before isn't working now and perhaps stops working at some point. I mean, how do leaders kind of assess? Because if you think about a CEO who's been in leadership roles, have had this long career, and they've had success, otherwise they wouldn't be a CEO. I mean,
Right.
how does a CEO know that the playbook that they've run before is just not going to work right now in whatever situation, environment they're in?
Well, uh, it's about being able to receive some honest input from people around them. And I regret to say that there are some CEOs with so much power and so much ego that
Mhm.
even when they get told, they can't hear it and they're
Yeah.
not going to change. They're going to say, I'm the boss. I'm paying the check.
Mhm.
You do what I tell you to do. And they're, quote, getting away with it, except that I believe they aren't. They're just postponing a problem that will come because the best people in those situations, they start to look for a different opportunity because they don't want to work with somebody that's stuck in well, I'll call them the dark ages, the command and control leadership mentality that pretty much everybody knows isn't really working, but people don't really know for sure what a better alternative is.
So back to some of the key words you've said earlier, and James, you've talked about this on the podcast for years. It's just building trust requires vulnerability, and as a leader, I have to be vulnerable. I have to go first,
Yes.
and if I am vulnerable, then what that allows the people around me is to be honest, to be straightforward, to give me the feedback unsolicited in a way that says, "Hey, man, the play you're running right now is not going to work here in this culture, in this environment, in this industry, in this market."
Yeah.
So it kind of goes back. I mean, if we tie that back to the collaborative culture piece, and that's being your first peak, if you will, I mean, it seems like that's exactly when a CEO doesn't have those people around them and can't have people express vulnerability because they don't make it safe to do so, you're not going to establish this collaborative
Right.
culture. Yeah,
Right.
we've seen that in
Yeah.
our work.
And a phrase that I use is that hard conversations are the entrance fee for healthy leadership.
Mm.
It's always going to be a hard conversation when someone tells you, you know, what you're doing, it sucks. It's not working. That's not easy to receive.
Yeah.
But if we actually want to keep learning and growing, we need to be surrounded by people who have the courage and license, the permission to tell us what we might not like to hear, but we really do need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that struck me about this portion was you call out collaborative culture. Some of what all of what we're talking about is really based on that model of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and it's the first part of the advantage, really. But it is around team, and you're kind of calling out culture as a whole, and this collaborative. You could have really strong teams that have vulnerable leaders within their function, and yet this is something a little bit more.
And if I could expand on that,
Yeah, please.
I will admit to you that a frustration that I observed in my growth period of working with organizations and leadership teams was that a shocking number of leadership teams invested in becoming healthier teams and then totally failed at cascading that to the rest of the organization. So they became a collaborative team, but it didn't become a collaborative culture. And that isn't going to make a healthy organization.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Can I tell
So we
you?
have to know.
Oh,
Well, right, James, we have to know from Jim, like what's the magic sauce there, right? I mean, because
yes.
we've all seen exactly what you're talking about, where we even get frustrated as consultants, trying to help our clients get beyond their own health and to make the culture healthier. And cascading is a
Yeah.
key, but there are some roadblocks. So I don't know, is there a tip or two that you could offer that you see really propels it from going beyond the team and then permeates itself into the
Yeah.
company?
It's actually the next peak, leadership accountability. It sounds like this is leaders holding people accountable, but that's not what this peak is. This is the leaders being accountable. This is especially the leadership team completely being consistent with anything that they're asking their people to be doing,
Yeah.
completely being courageous in holding each other up to the highest standards, humbly admitting when they make mistakes to each other, but even beyond that, to the next layer down, and eventually, if especially for the CEO, to the entire organization. Um, and some of you are maybe quite connected to Gary Ridge of the WD-40 company. I'm
Uh-huh. Yeah.
thrilled to be friends with Gary, and this is a guy who just demonstrates, exemplifies what we're talking about. He had no need to be the smartest person in the room. He was, like he calls himself, the dumbest person in the room. He makes fun of his mistakes, uh, and that kind of humility changed the whole permission in the organization to admit mistakes, which means that mistakes get on the table faster, to be dealt with faster. Yeah, again, it's so fun talking with you guys because you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've seen this over and over. We need to help leaders realize that whatever they think they're hiding, they're kidding themselves. The mistakes that they're making, people around them have already figured out. The limits that they have that they're pretending aren't limits, people already know it. And the power, the opportunity is to just start admitting these things, and people will start to think, oh, maybe this person is actually more self aware than we thought they were. Oh, maybe this person is actually interested in learning rather than only interested in their own answers to whatever it is that we think we need to do. Oh, maybe that means we can work together rather than just work for this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one
I
of the things I'm sitting here thinking is just, accountability has been around forever when it comes to leadership books and the way that we've consulted for years. But the nuance I'm hearing you talk about, Jim, is this is not so much leaders establishing a culture of accountability, which is,
It's
required,
important. Yeah,
but this is the leaders being accountable to themselves and their peers, accountable to
absolutely.
providing the organization clarity, accountable to being vulnerable, accountable
Yep.
to admitting mistakes, like you talked about before. So, and it just goes back to the leader has to model the behavior that we want in the rest of the organization. But
Yeah.
the way you said it, though, Jim, I just love this is about the leaders being accountable.
And we've had this model, the ascent model with these four peaks for several years that we've been working with. It was only eventually that I got around to writing a book about it. You probably won't be surprised that of the four peaks, when we ask teams to assess their organizational health on those four peaks, leadership accountability is the poorest performing peak,
Yeah.
which is really a pathetic statement because it's the one peak that the leadership team has the most control over, and yet it's the one they most often are doing poorly.
Yeah. A- And Jim, I love the tie between a collaborative culture and the leadership accountability towards it. I will tell you, I was just with a client, Dr. Squatch, last week, and we've worked with them for years and seen them grow. And it's been so fun to watch them grow. We started with them with the 25 million, and then they just got bought by Unilever. And just to see their success and their growth has been awesome. They were assimilating a new team member in this last offsite, and so we had the intact team or the longer standing members of the team talk about this evolution. And what we heard was things like, I've never been on a team that's as transparent and vulnerable with each other as this.
Hmm.
One person said, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop when I joined this company, and it never did. It sounded too good to be true, but it wasn't. It was just good. It was like,
Yeah.
it was really true, and and they have an extremely collaborative culture, and it starts with those leaders being
Yeah.
extremely collaborative. And so I just love your tie between the collaborative culture and the leadership accountability to that, you know?
And I'm just longing for leadership teams to recognize it's not just a tie, it's a complete dependency. You will
Yeah,
not have collaborative culture if you don't deliver on leadership accountability.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
Jim,
vulnerability. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Go ahead.
so Jim, if you move into the third one around strategic momentum, I mean, talk to everybody about like, so what does that mean? Why is that an important part? And the third P, if you will.
Sure. For 40, 50 years, every leader has known that we should have a strategic plan. And there's a million of them out there, a lot of them on shelves, not being really
Yes.
used. So it's not about a plan, it's about a plan that's well communicated. But it's not strategic planning. The peak is strategic momentum. For momentum, we need to have a plan that gets achieved, followed by a plan that gets achieved, followed by a plan that gets achieved. And then people start to believe, oh, these plans are important and they work. But not only do we need to achieve our goals, we actually need to prosper. For a business, we need to make money. For a nonprofit, we need to actually be impactful and have some financial overflow because it's the overflow that gives us momentum. We can take advantage of opportunities that arise because we've got some money to use. We can invest in people so they can be even more collaborative because we got some money to use. And sadly, there's just an unbelievable number of organizations, for profit and nonprofit, out there that are squeaking by. And they're wondering why it's so hard to be an effective organization. Well, it's because you just don't have strategic momentum, which I believe is because you don't have a collaborative culture that brings together the energies to really get impactful progress that's being reinforced by accountable leaders.
Right.
So it builds. It's not like there is a level of independence in each of the peaks, but there's also a high level of interdependence within the peaks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would include strategic focus is super important in that to
Right.
get the momentum. You can't have this diverse focus of things that you want to track. It's like we need to be super focused on what's most important right now.
I I'm involved in a lot of early stage companies, especially at the board level. And the repeating theme of boards of early stage companies is to keep telling the founder CEO, no, there's just the one thing that we're going to do right now. I don't I don't need to hear about another four cool possibilities. Put them
Yes.
away and get this thing done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And then how does that align with your fourth peak on talent magnetism?
Yeah. So I would argue that talent magnetism is actually the crowning piece in the sense that if we have done our job of building a collaborative culture that is reinforced and exemplified by the leaders being accountable and created strategic momentum, we now have an organization that people believe is nice to work in, maybe even great to work in, like the example you gave, James, of
Yeah.
of that team member saying, "I was waiting for the shoe to drop, and it never did." Oh, because it felt too good.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard for us to believe it could be that good, but boy, if we start to realize it is that good, we're not going to go anywhere. Not
Yeah.
only that, we're going to start telling people that we wish would work with us that they really should consider this opportunity that's coming along. The organization, because of its healthiness, because of the people that are in it acting as ambassadors, becomes magnetic to the talent that is needed in the organization. We call this peak the beacon because it's kind of like saying to the world, healthy, healthy, good place to be. You want to try this, you come on over and see. And if a company is having trouble recruiting, it it's kind of a glaring evidence that they don't have talent magnetism,
Yeah.
which I believe is likely evidence that somewhere on those other three peaks, they're not doing what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, it makes me think of a couple of clients I've worked with over the years. As you're sharing that, Jim, it's just, um, they may not pay the most, they may not have the best benefits. They have great work for people, a challenging, I shouldn't say challenging work environment, a collaborative work environment, challenging work rate or collaborative work environment.
And meaningful.
And people love to be there, and they love their colleagues, and they love coming to work. And then ultimately they end up sticking around, getting promoted and making more money than they ever dreamed about.
Right.
Um, but attract someone to a culture nowadays seems to be, what the pay is and can they work from home and get all the other things that are in the front pages of the popular news press nowadays. But we know it really is the things you've talked about in this book that attract people to come and want to work for an organization.
Yeah.
It's pretty
And
cool.
stay there. Like I argue with CEOs, you guys probably do the same, that if they have to pay the most to get people to come,
Yeah.
that should be a signal that there's something wrong with your organization.
Yeah.
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 Oh, well, we're the highest paying. Is that because you've got so much money or because that's the only way you can get people to come?
Right.
Ah,
Right.
Yeah.
So Rick asked a great question in the first peak, collaborative culture, of like, what does the CEO need to focus on? And then we didn't do that with the bottom three or the next three peaks. So could you just go through each one of those and talk about the CEO's role in building a collaborative culture? Do that one again, and then leadership accountability and strategic momentum and talent magnetism.
sure. Leadership accountability, I think the phrase that sums it up is what Rick has already said, is that the leader has to go first. The leader has to be the first one to say, I'm sorry, I enforced this plan that we were going to try to use and it really hasn't delivered. That's on me.
Yeah.
Sorry. Or, hey, this is the weakness that we're trying to figure out, and it's my weakness. So where do we go? Is there someone around the table that's got strength here that I haven't figured out yet? Please speak up. Or is there something we need to bring to this table so that together we can get the input we need? Because I don't know what to do with this. It used to be, guys, that a leader admitting they don't know what to do was the disqualification of them in that role.
Yeah.
And oddly, what I've observed is it's almost like the opposite now. When a CEO tells their people, I've been thinking about this for a long time and I'm not really sure how we're going to solve this problem, that isn't heard as, oh no, we're in trouble. That's heard as, finally, a leader that realizes they don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
I think that means that they're going to start looking for answers wherever they need to go. It's an encouragement rather than a disqualification.
Yeah. Can we pause right there? I would just say in the book American Icon, Alan Mulally, who's a friend of Table Groups, when he first took over Ford, there was a problem with the Ford Edge as it was about to be released. He was thrilled that somebody brought it up in their meeting.
Yeah.
And everybody on the team expected him to solve it. And he said, hey, folks, I came from airplanes. I don't know cars. I'm expecting you folks to figure out the answer.
Mhm.
I don't know it. Like, I really don't. If it was an airplane, I could figure it out. But I need you folks. And he said that was one of the moments that built vulnerability-based trust on his team. And it was such a game changer for that group because they had been used to the CEO telling them what all the answers were.
Which meant that they didn't want to risk suggesting what an answer could be, because unless it was
Exactly.
the same as the CEOs, they were wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. What does a CEO need to do to build strategic momentum?
So I think there's a few pieces here. I think one is they need to be absolutely rigorous at making sure they've got a simple clarity message about what strategic success looks like, and that
Mm.
that gets translated in ways that make it easy for people to understand in whatever role they're in. It's not just here's the 5 things we're going to do in the world this year. Yeah, maybe there are 3 or 5 things, but there is also the translation to, and what does that mean for me in my role? Not that the CEO has the answers to that for every person in the organization, but they are committed to helping every leader do the work that they need to do with the people that are their direct supports. Recently had a great conversation with a person who says, we never use direct reports anymore. We call them direct supports. I think that's a
Oh,
fun little way to
yeah,
reframe it. So the
yeah.
direct supports need to figure out, oh, and for my strategic impact, I need to be sure that I'm clear about this. So translation of strategy into ways that make sense for everyone in the organization. And then there's commitment to actually overflow and creating some um, reserve financially that lets them invest in the people in the company in ways that are not just solve this problem today,
Mm, mm.
in ways that are invest in the future in people because they are our future. And well, there are some examples that I've given in the book of
Mhm.
different companies that are doing that with the aim of inspiring leaders to realize that this is actually not rocket science. We just haven't forced ourselves to think about it this way enough. Um,
Yeah.
but if we do, then we're going to be investing in people who are collaborating with more potential, increasing the outcome, the output, and that's just going to pay off financially.
Well,
Yeah.
Jim, if I just insert there for a moment, if I think about some of the best clients I've worked with over the years, I mean, their top several layers in the organization are not just executing today's strategic plan, they're investing into tomorrow in terms of what can
Yes.
be, what should be, what needs to be reimagined, what needs to be um, just fulfilled in a different way when it comes to 3, 5, even 10 years down the road. And sometimes if you see people's careers sort of stagnate, that's because they've been incredible executors of the current plan for years, if not decades. But sometimes, as soon as they're asked by the organization to work on some stuff that's a little far out, they always use this phrase, "Well, I can come to that meeting, but then I have to get back to my day job."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and for some reason, the organization hasn't done a good job to explain to those leaders who are rising up into the organization themselves that this is now part of your day job, just not
Right.
on the execution of the current, but the planning for the future as well. And that's the top several layers of the organization,
Mhm.
just not the executive team. Because if the executive team does that work just on their own, they're not developing leaders who can lead the organization into the future.
100% agree. I'm also alarmed at how often I find that members of executive teams, the highest team in the organization, spend 70% of their day
Mhm.
doing, not leading,
Yes.
Oh,
doing.
yeah.
Yes.
And if you've got 1,000 people in your organization, you should spend 7% of your day doing and 93% leading, investing in people, making opportunities for them to learn and grow and try and experiment and make mistakes and learn from them. But no, so many people are so fulfilled by the thing that gave them the opportunity to get this promotion to this level that they just can't stop themselves from doing. I'm gonna I'm gonna do the cash flow projection because I'm really good. I know I'm the CFO and I've got 17 people in my department, but I'm really good at this. I'm gonna do it. So
I just
wrong.
if I tie that
Yeah.
in and then let's move on to the talent magnetism piece. But if I just think about leaders rising in the ranks in an organization over the course of their career At each phase, they have to learn to let go of what they previously had a hold of before. And even go back to that phrase that, was popular years ago, right? What got you here won't get you there. And it's just the speed, and again, back to this momentum word you've been using, the momentum and the speed that's required in the leadership ranks of an organization, it is just intense and it doesn't let up. And 40-hour work weeks, don't exist. And it's one of those things that you have so many executives who are pressing so hard. And one of the things that I see them do that it's a mistake is they try to keep everything that they used to know and do into their same fold of how they're leading right now. And it's just impossible. You have to let go and start shedding some things to create that momentum for your organization. It's hard for executives, but
Yeah.
so on this fourth one, Jim, so talent magnetism, what's the CEO's role here?
So this, I think, really is about making heroes of people in the organization, especially as they are talking to people outside of the organization about their company.
Yeah.
So, hey, gang, whether we're sitting in a leadership team meeting or maybe there's a department gathering and the CEO is speaking for 20 minutes. Hey, I want to call out Angela who did whatever or shared this. And the more that we can make telling the world how great you love your job, how much you love your job, the thing that everyone would want the CEO to be saying about them, it just multiplies and magnifies this. Now, it's got to be true, which
Yeah.
means the CEO has to have done all of the work for the 3 peaks leading up to that. But once you start getting it, and you don't have to have it universal, once you start getting one person talking like that, they can inspire people within the organization to recognize that's a good point. It is pretty nice to work here.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen, I've seen this in my own company and in lots of client companies. There are people working in organizations and they've never worked anywhere else. And they don't know how good they've got it.
Oh,
We
yeah.
one time had a really great person leave and go and get whatever it was, 15% more pay somewhere else. And within 6 months, they were begging to come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
boomerang employee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love telling my clients, at least those that are like really good or above average, it's like, hey, if I could just take you with me to go see one of my other clients who's on a crazy
Totally.
scale, that you just wouldn't believe. And you just would sit with me in front of them for a couple of days and just listen about what's going on in their culture. You'd go running back to your organization right now so fast.
Yeah.
Because anyway.
Yeah.
So
The,
I don't know about, go ahead, James.
Well, the 2 things I want to say about that is, I mean, I love it. We were doing the core values exercise with an executive team recently, and maybe you two do this. If we have time, we'll actually call the rock stars that
Yeah.
are named on the list, and it was so great. And you hear, we put them on speakerphone, we call them, and hey, we're in this offsite, we're talking about great people in the company, and your name came up over and over and over and over. And we just love the work that you do here and insert core values. You are such a great fit here. And usually the response is, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Or, boy, I've never been affirmed like that before. Or, like just some amazing, you made not my day, my week, my month. This is amazing.
So good.
And the last time we did it, the leader finished the calls and said, that was so much fun. And you're like, yeah, it was. Let's keep doing that,
Right.
Let's
And
keep
why haven't we
affirming
ever done
people.
this before?
Exactly. And it doesn't take much time and it doesn't take much money to do it, like virtually none on both accounts. The other point I would make as a CEO is to guard the culture, right? And encourage people below the executive team, guard the culture. Like one bad apple or one person who just isn't the culture fit can really spoil some other people. And as you folks know, usually when somebody parts ways, they leave on their own, or maybe we've finally taken action on it, the response is usually like, I don't know why I waited so long.
Uh-huh.
Like
And
I should
that
have done
part
this a long
that
time
comes
ago.
up in the story, James, that
Yeah,
there's a person that ends up leaving, and then the CEO starts to hear what's really been going on. It's not
exactly.
until the person's gone that people feel like it's safe to say, he was poisoning every well that he was drinking from.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And so it's like, let's coach people up or let's get them a better fit somewhere else. But let's guard the culture and let's embed that guarding of the culture throughout the collaborative
Mhm.
culture, because this is the gold and
See,
that's
this
what we
this is a
aspire
piece,
to.
again, we've been spending our career working on this with leaders. CEOs over and over think culture is an HR thing,
Right.
and
Totally.
they should focus on strategy and finance. And what we need to help leaders recognize is, of course, you need to be aware of strategy and finance, but culture isn't a nice to have. It's a
Right.
absolutely essential piece. And
Yeah.
while you should have good help in the HR department, you still must be the champion of
Yeah.
there being a healthy
That's right.
organization.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
Jim, I have one more question for you that I want to ask, and that is, so in all of our roles over the years of being associated with the Table Group, working with CEOs, working with executive teams, we're very often involved in conversations about the board, right? The board of directors.
Yeah.
And so your book, The Imperfect Board Member, which was written 20 years ago, right,
Yeah.
Jim? 20
Yes.
years ago. That is still to this day my go-to book on boards. And there's several things that I remember from The Imperfect Board Member. There's one key phrase that I'd love for you to talk about real quick, because it's the biggest piece of advice that I give to my executive teams when they're talking to their board and what the board's role should be. And it's a simple phrase, and that is nose in, but hands out.
Very close. Noses in, fingers out is how we say
Oh,
it.
okay. I've been messing it up for 20 years. Okay, but the whole point there, Jim, is so what's behind that? Because as soon as I say that, even my version of it, right? As soon as I say that, the leadership team and the CEO is like, oh yeah, that's it. They
Yeah.
have their fingers in the business and they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Their nose in is fine, but not their finger, not their hand. So talk about that, Jim.
Board members often have this misconception that they got invited to be on a board because they're so great at this or that. They're such a wizard in finance. So when they get to the board table, they're going to really be the finance champion for the company or the marketing champion or whatever. And what what we try to help board members recognize is, now that you got you in the door, but that is not your job at all. Your job is to think strategically with the others around the table about what's best for the entire organization. You have to put your single focus of expertise on the shelf. That it's not that you forget the stuff you know, but that's not why you're at the table. And it's very hard for some people to do that. The more that we can talk about that and the board accept it and the CEO recognize, ooh, this could be our secret, and find permission to remind anyone, I think you got your fingers in. And can we agree that that's a problem? I'm working with a company right now where they just got a new board member, and the guy is a marketing communications expert. And the CEO got a 15-page report about their website, and here's what should be done differently with the
Oh my
website.
gosh.
Yeah.
That is fingers so into the armpits right there.
Yeah.
And the CEO, is looking for help to extricate her from this mess. Yeah, she needs that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
could talk about boards all day long, but I know we're here to talk about CEOs in your newest book, Jim. So I appreciate you talking about the board book just for a second.
Well, it's
I
fun to
think
have
it's
them both related too, though. Like, honestly, I do feel like the Imperfect CEO is an extension. It's not like, oh, it's a totally different thing. No, it's related. And more than ever, I believe that organizational health includes an effective board. The
Yeah.
board piece isn't something off to the
Mhm.
side.
Yeah. And I would say that's a great tease to bring you back, Jim, to talk about the board and your book, The Imperfect Board Member. So with that, I want to say thank you so much to both of you for joining. Jim, I so appreciate the work that you did in your book, and I love the 4 peaks. And Rick, I loved you joining. You asked great questions, and so we're going to need to bring you back because it was awesome. So thank you both so much.
It
Thanks,
was
Jim.
it was awesome. Thanks very much. And I'd love to be back.
All right, that we're going to hold you to it. And
Perfect.
and with that, to the watchers and listeners, please save and share this episode, and we look forward to having you back on the next Organizational Health Advantage podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Org Health Advantage. Your hosts, Keith and James, are helping leaders change the world of work and invite you to share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. For more resources on building stronger teams and organizational health, check out tablegroup.com.